Attention men, here's an important new podcast you need to be listening to.
So this whole issue about prostate and prostate health and all the challenges that we're having with it, but no one's talking. So that's the reason why I started this podcast, so we can talk, so we can get understanding. I understand I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical individual. I'm just an ordinary, normal guy who had some issues to say, hey, let's talk about this thing.
P is for Prostate with Odell Cleveland. Download anytime where you get your podcasts. And join for the full podcast at www.patreon.com/Odell Cleveland.
Coming up in this episode of Finding Common Ground.
We had a manhunt for a gentleman who's accused of killing a CEO of a major healthcare organization. This person's picture has been all over media and everything else. Would you have recognized your son's picture? I'm not a Trump fan at all, but what I am is this. I am an American. I hope that President Trump is successful on some of the things that he wants to do. I hope that he's unsuccessful on some of the shenanigan things.
And I'm going to go back to the one key thing is leadership. And we need to continue to build the leadership in this community and be willing to make some tough decisions that could be unpopular with some people, but make a difference with
Amen.
A lot of people.
I was poor. I was the poor boy from public housing. In my mind, it's this thing called the government's going to pay for it. The government will pay for it. Well, who the heck is the government?
There are two sides to every coin.
How do we deal with racial issues when they affect relationships?
Finding common ground on all those issues that we come against.
There's black and there's white.
And I think as Christians, we have to learn how to get together because we're not in heaven.
I've met more interesting people just by God just bringing them in.
Republicans and Democrats.
But a lot of times, when it comes to race and it comes to culture and it comes to perception, even as Christians, we don't always understand. We look at it through our lenses.
There's Bill.
I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland called Parma.
Any black people in Palmer?
There was not one.
Not one black person,
Not
Bill?
one.
Come on,
Not
Bill.
one.
You got to have one. A
Nope.
token black person? A token?
And there's Odell.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, public housing, single mom, divorced single mom of 4 kids. And I came up through segregation and all that kind of stuff.
If a black person drove through the town, the police would stop and escort them out.
Bill and Odell are finding common ground.
A part of what we have to do is listen to each other, find the common ground, and question, not questioning you like you're on a witness stand, but questioning you for a better understanding. Father God, we just come to you in the precious name of Jesus Christ. God, we just thank you for grace and mercy. And as I look back over my life and I think about all the things that I did that I wasn't supposed to do and how you spared me, and all the things that I did and they didn't always turn out right, but how you protected me. And some of the things that, God, I just messed up. I messed up. And I thank you that I'm still here at 64 years old, just still here. Don't know what the future holds, but I do know who holds the future. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you for this time with our guest, Andy. It's been a long time since he's been on the show. Thank you for my brother and his wife and the friendship we've developed with Odell and Bev. Lord, we lift up our families as we get ready for the holidays and do traveling. We ask for safety as we travel about. Thank you for all the blessings you've given us in 2024. It's been a spectacular year. Thank you. Amen.
Okay. Bill, Andy, and the dog. What's the dog name, Bill?
That dog's name is Cooper.
Hey,
Cooper. So why does Cooper have this big old thing on his head that looks like a donut, or what we would say on the dirt roads of South Carolina, look like a lampshade? What's wrong with Cooper?
It's called the Dome of Shame.
Yeah,
The
right.
dome of shame. What Cooper done did?
Well,
Cooper done did?
I had it on first.
Got
Lori gave it to me. Dome of Shame.
it.
He's got cancer, and they cut it out of his leg, and he's got an open wound, so it's healing. It's doing well, but if you let him, he's a dog. He'll lick it, and then he'll get an infection. So we have to keep the Dome of Shame on him to keep him from licking it.
Okay.
Do you lick your wounds?
No. I'm gonna leave that alone. That's too easy. That's low hanging fruit, Bill. That's low hanging fruit. That's low hanging fruit. Question for you.
Yeah.
We had a manhunt for a gentleman who's accused of killing a CEO of a major healthcare organization.
Mm-hmm.
This person's picture has been all over media and everything else. My question is, Andy, my question is, Bill, my question is, Odell, my question to the audience is, would you have recognized your son's picture? Because the family, nothing against the family, but nobody knew who that was until the guy at Mickey D's saw him. So I'm thinking, the good-looking black man from the dirt roads of South Carolina, would I recognize my son's picture in all those pictures? Or would I I don't know if that's T or not. What do you think, Mr. Goebel?
Well, that's a great question because not only he was valedictorian for like a Greensboro day school, comes from a very wealthy family. His family hadn't seen him in 3 or 4 months, so they were worried about him. And you would think they would look at that picture and go, "Holy cow, that's
Bill.
Luigi.
That's Bill. No, that's Bill. That's Bill from Palmer.
Yeah. And but I think that's a great question because he had a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances, popular at school, working associates. You would think somebody would step up and say, "Hey, holy cow, that's Luigi," and I need to call the FBI or the police. Instead, like you said, a lady at Mickey D, a worker there, I think she's going to end up with 50 or 60,000 bucks.
Hey,
that's a lot of French fries.
That's a lot of fries, baby. That's a lot of fries.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that does beg the question. We know some people at United Healthcare and high up, and just both of us know. And I called her, and her husband was with us at the hunt camp, and she knew him really well. He was an actuary, and she knew him then, and they were in meetings together, and she sat in his office, and she says he was a terrific guy, well on his way to becoming an even higher level. And so now she has security and she has protection, and it's crazy.
Andy, your thoughts, sir?
Bill, I hadn't even thought about why somebody from the family didn't recognize those pictures. I mean, it was all over every single news station and, a focal point of the news. And so I also now, prompted by your question, wonder, did they not recognize some form of mental illness or, I mean, did this just come out of the blue? So yeah, the guy was accomplished, and what drove him to this point, or was he dealing with illnesses before? And yeah, it's a great question, Odell.
Well, thank you for recognizing my brilliance. I need you on the show more often.
I said it was a great question.
I don't take it any further than that. You're pushing the limits.
There you go. But, it's interesting from that perspective. And again, our prayers go with the family.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the backlash from social media, without really getting into it, of some people who are frustrated and venting their frustrations about their experiences with the one healthcare institution and so many more? People don't like to be told no.
Well, if you're asking me the question, I don't do any social media. I think there's obviously benefits. I think it's obviously a part of our world that we're not getting rid of. But I look at the not so healthy things about social media. Before this event, there's so many other events. I'm not a big fan of social media. So, it just shows that there's a lot of unhealthiness with social media. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, Andy's right. I was talking to a medical doctor and a friend that's a psychiatrist, and we were talking about social media, and I didn't realize the mechanics of your brain getting dopamine, you get a hit and you get a thumbs up or happy, and you want another one and you want another one, or you're on social media and someone has a different viewpoint and you get on there and you go back and forth, and then
Right.
when you get them, you get a dopamine hit and you want another one. So your brain gets accustomed to that and it keeps wanting to go back to it and going back to it. You know, how many times people check their Facebook or check their Instagram, or
Good point.
they set it up
Yeah.
so that they don't even have to check it. As soon as somebody posts something, it pops up on their
Wow.
thing and they can go to it. News medias do that all the time. The flash, breaking news. So what happens is our brains get adjusted to, or get addicted to this. I gotta know. I gotta know. I gotta know. And you've got to break that. You got to, a couple things you can do. One is do what Andy does is don't have
You went
social
cold
media.
turkey. Yeah.
Yeah. Now and I know.
Well, we're engaged in social media right now.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We're on the media and we're socializing. This is my platform.
So
Yeah,
do you
good
want
point.
a
You're right.
do you want a nice shirt like this, Andy? Or would you wear something like this? All the colors. I brought all the colors, all the energy. I brought it all. The good looking black guy brought it all, including the shoes, Andy.
If only everybody could see the way Odell is dressed right now. I asked him how many batteries his sweatshirt came with.
It's solar, baby, solar. EV.
Right now, I'm seeing about 10 different colors in that shirt. Yeah.
But social media, we have too many different ways to communicate, and I'm about as old fashioned as it gets. I want to do this with you one-on-one with you guys. I want to look at your faces. I want to look at your expressions. Okay, if I got a Zoom, I'll Zoom. Okay, if I've got a email, but I want the face-to-face. And a lot of that's been taken away, and a lot of people are just spending way too much time on these platforms, and I think it's unhealthy.
Yeah, it reminds me of when you had your manufacturing facility, you're making your kayaks and your boats. You went onto the floor and talked to the people. You didn't Zoom them. You didn't do emails. You said, "What's going on? What's the problem?" And you get in, and then once you build that relationship up, you don't have to necessarily go in, but if you're out of town, you call them and they'll say, "What's going on? Tell me." And you build that relationship. It's so important.
Well, networking relationships, but I say networking is another form or a new form of currency. So Bill, so Andy, so Odell, I heard that the three of you all met each other the other night at this snooty tooty party in Greensboro, North Carolina, all the muckety mucks, all the rich people being thrown by a billionaire. And I'm going to talk about homeless in a little while, but how do you like the billionaire party with the stone crab claws, the big old shrimp about as big as my head? I'm not a drinker, but I could tell the good stuff. They had the top shelf stuff. I could look at the bottle, and the bottle was enticing.
I saw no Mad Dog on the shelf or Boone's Farm.
No Mad Dog 2020, no Boone's Farm,
No.
None of that. What Bill, what was the most, I don't know liqueurs, but what was the most expensive liquor that was there for free?
Actually, it was a wine. It
Oh,
was
wine?
a red wine. Did you try any of that? He had a Magnum, which means it's about 3 foot long.
Oh, wow.
A wine in a special dumpster, dump it out. He had a couple of them, and it was really, really good wine from France. And so that was it. The other stuff was great. What I love about that party, and we were talking about it the other day, Andy, with my wife and Odell and a few friends, we get to see people that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, because, we get so busy in our little silos that we never break it down. But when you go there, man, I saw so-and-so, and I saw, and you can have a decent conversation with them. You don't have to, it's not like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? I'm fine," and then walk away. I mean, you can, because you've maybe seen in the paper or somehow social media, something that's going on in their life. It's a business exchange. I was talking a couple things like the idea of the endowment for the schools. I talked to Kathy about it. I talked to Walker Sanders about it, and they're like, "Yeah, we can help with that." I also talked to them about Lonnie Poole's idea to do for nonprofits something like an Oscar, where you go, "Who gave us the best return on investment for our money? Who's the newest and fastest growing?" Set your criteria up, and so that Lonnie wants to do this to recognize the achievements of some of these nonprofits, like the Fast 50 in business that they do for Tried. Maybe we do the best 20 nonprofits in the state each year and give them not only an award, but some funding. and so I mentioned to Walker about that, and he said, "Yeah, I want to talk to him." And he gave me an idea which I hadn't thought of. He said, "Why don't you call Ivan Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Because Ivan's now in charge of a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits. So I've got to get a hold of Ivan to talk to him about that." Had we not had that event, I would probably be trying to get on Walker's calendar,
Yeah.
get on Kathy's calendar, and vice versa. And this way, you can sit and quickly say, "Hey, are you interested?" "Yeah, I am." "Okay, I'll follow up."
Well, just the audience knows, Bill are talking about individuals who were there, like the new city manager, U.S. congressperson. You have the mayor there. You have
Heads of universities.
heads
City
of
council.
universities, city
Yeah.
council. You have the movers and the shakers and the muckety mucks and everybody else. So the question is,
In a good
What were
looking
we
black
doing
man.
there?
yeah, Bill. Yeah, exactly. Why were we there? Why were we there? Who opened the door? Who opened the door and let us sneak in?
I don't know about you guys, but you know who I talked to most there?
Who was that?
You.
You talked to me then.
Yeah, and Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we got in the back room and got into some good, decent conversation,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
I guess that provoked you to, I don't know why, have me back on the show.
Yeah.
But it was a gathering of people who from all walks who you don't get to see much. So it's getting people together and breaking bread,
Mm-hmm.
and it was some darn good bread.
No.
Oh yeah. It was high dollar. It's interesting.
And you got to see Jim Melvin, which
I
you
got
hadn't
to see
seen in
Jim.
what-
Long time. Jim is a long time mentor of
Tell
mine.
the audience who Jim Melvin
Well,
is.
Jim Melvin is, I call him the godfather
Mr.
in a very
Greensboro.
kind way of Greensboro, North Carolina. He's the gentleman that years ago when I ran this very large nonprofit, I met him. He saw something in me and he started really
Was he the
have
first
a
one to
meeting.
call you a good-looking black man?
No, Jim never called me a good-looking black man. but I probably was the first one who called myself a good-looking black man. But so Jim has really just kind of taught me some things because you don't know what you don't know.
Amen.
Now, is Jim perfect? No. Is Odell perfect? No. I guess that's why we got along. But he used to talk about vision and the fact that he was going to build a site and prepare it for a automobile manufacturing company years ago. And he failed with Mercedes. He failed with Volvo, but that never, ever got him down. He just kept saying, Odell, we're going to land something. And he taught me some phrases I can't say on podcasts. Like when you go up the pole, the higher you get, the more you show your blank.
Yeah.
He taught me about per capita income. He taught me about how to break ground and all the people who protest and what you're doing. Once you break ground, they go away. Just so much stuff and other things I can't say. But in that setting, at that higher level of socialization, let's say this, I know it's the difference between white and black, rich and poor, Republicans, Democrats, but in that setting, nobody talks about that. Nobody argues about that. Nobody does any of that stuff. People are just like, how you doing? And when I saw Jim on oxygen in a wheelchair, it really touched me because I remember at one time he was the most powerful man in Greensboro. Now he's very influential now, but he's not the most powerful man in Greensboro now. So that's what I really looked to and just wanted to tell him thank you while I can, because I think that once you get to a certain level, you're not climbing anymore. Because I see the young climbers in the group and they, the young people, they're climbing and they're trying to advance their careers. I'm mad at them because I understand how all that works. But at the end of the day, we get to see people and you get to say, hey, thank you, or how you doing, or to this new city manager, hey, I'm picking at him. How did you get here? He said, well, that's my position. Now I got it. So just think about Roy, who invited everyone. Do Roy invite individuals or do Roy invite people in certain positions, and why?
I'll tell you. Andy, you want to answer that? Go ahead. I'm going to give you my sense.
I think Roy invited people.
I agree. And here's why. I didn't see the head of the Democratic Party, the head of the Republican Party. I didn't see any of those people because they're not his people that he knows that come across his life. I was with a fellow today and I mentioned the party and it was at Roy Carroll's and he goes, who's that? Okay. But I think he's a people person and relationship person. And I think that's where it starts. Yeah, if you have a position, that's good, but that's not a deal breaker for him. That's probably why the three of us show up.
Well, I've been knowing him for years, and to your point, way before he was a billionaire, that's kind of his. But Andy, you would answer this question better than Bill and myself, even though I got 1 or 2 pennies. Bill got a couple $100 bills in his socks. How does it feel to go from having some money to having wealthy? It doesn't change you. I watch you, the vehicle you drive. You drive, it's a little above a hoopty, but it ain't fancy. You really do.
But I've been there, done that.
Yep, but you really do what you do. And what I admire about you is that you really don't give a damn what people think. Is that because of your millions, or that's because that's who you are and you happen to have the millions behind it?
Yeah, the millions behind it is nothing to do with who I am. And, been there, done that with material things, but I'm at the stage in my life where I want to make a difference for others. Only reason I want more money is to share and give it to good causes, to be honest with you. I want to be me, and I think you saw me there. I don't dress up fancy.
Right. You're not in no tops. You're not in the tops.
I did take my hat off.
Okay. All right. So they don't know you did well.
Some people.
Okay.
But I just want to be true to myself, and I feel privileged to be invited by Roy. And look, we all are different in our own ways.
Yes, sir.
And I celebrate my differences. I love the outdoors, and I'm not talking the golf course, but
you know where you're going to find him in the winter? Snow skiing.
Yeah, in Utah.
In Wyoming.
Wow, he goes there for a month.
But at any rate, I hope that money has changed me in good ways,
Well, I saw you on TV the other day, and before we get to why you're on TV, a lot of things happened in New York. One of the things happened is the young man went on trial for killing another young man. I think he put him in the chokehold. I think that one young man was homeless, and some would say he may have had some mental conditions. I don't know. I don't know all the details, so I'll be careful here. But it's interesting when you think about the homeless population. Are people homeless because they're homeless? Are people homeless because of mental issue, or what? So let's leave the halo around the issue of homelessness, and some people don't even call it homeless. They said the unhoused. So let's leave that alone, the why. But let's talk, Andy, about the unintended consequences of the city to downtown when a homeless person doesn't do certain things, whether they are urinating in public or defecating on one's property or have whatever, and your customers are not feeling safe. As a business owner, how do you feel about what's going on in downtown Greensboro as it relates to our homeless population? Because we talked about the RRC, Bill and myself, on a couple of episodes ago. So, but I don't own a business. I own a business, but it's not downtown. Bill owns businesses, but it's not downtown. You're right smack in the middle of it. How does that feel? What does that look like? What does that smell like? What's the responses, sir?
Well, the first thing I feel is compassion for people that are unsheltered. I mean, how can you not feel compassion when you're driving down the road in your warm car that's heated, or that you just came from your heated house and I'm going downtown to my heated office or my air-conditioned office or my dry office, when you see people parading from urban ministries over to the IRC, over to the library, over to the parks, which are not so welcoming now to the homeless community because a lot of the homeless community took over the parks. So the first thing I feel is compassion. And then I feel compassion, secondly, to the people that are operating businesses downtown that struggle in the first place, to be honest with you. And then you add other conditions like the homeless or like economy or like people who want a parking place at the mall and be able to walk into their store. So retail and people downtown deal with real issues, struggling themselves, but it's not to the level of being unhoused or homeless. And so we have to look at it from a compassion standpoint. We have to look at it. Are we making headway? Are we moving the meter and helping the homeless? And then we also have to pay attention to the people that are taxpayers, the people that are paying for the services for the homeless. And, we got a lot of great services, but I guess we don't have enough of them for the amount of homeless people that are now in Greensboro.
Elaborate, then I asked Bill more on paying for the services, because one of the things that Jim Melvin taught me was the per capita income. He used to tell me all the time, Odell, we got to get the per capita income of downtown Greensboro up, and downtown is the hub, and all these things he's been telling me for 20 some odd years. So is that what you're alluding to? Or when you start talking about paying for the homelessness? Because people have told me that other cities send their homeless population to Greensboro, buy them a bus and say, go to Greensboro, it'll be much better for you there. It's almost like, and I know I'm getting in trouble for saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's almost like immigration.
Yeah.
Come to America, come to Greensboro.
It's true. I mean, we have proof that other cities buy bus tickets for people to come to Greensboro because we have the services, and the services are now overwhelmed. In fact, we even discussed the idea of, if you're from Guilford County, we can help you with these services. If you're not from Guilford County, you got to go back to where you're from. We just can't afford to help everybody. In fact, we can't afford to help just our immediate problem in Greensboro.
Yeah, it's as I thought of homelessness, which is a big problem in Greensboro. The way I'd approach it is, first off, I'd do a nationwide search and find out a city that solved it and go visit them. And if it's not putting them on a bus to Greensboro, then how do you do it? And just see if we can replicate that.
Bill, that comes from, yes, that's a great idea, and we've done it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Houston's a great example. Tens of thousands of people.
Really?
Well,
and that's a hot place to stay in the summer.
Yeah.
Outside.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Is another one that's
we've met with the mayor there. And
how they solve it, Andy?
Well, they have places with wraparound services. Our homeless population's walking from one side of downtown to the other, and then back to another, and then back to where they started from every single day.
So that's why you think there's a lot more of them, just because it's the same ones going back and forth.
Well, it's not a lot more of them because of that. It's a lot more of them because people here, we've got all these services, but they're spread around a lot. Communities that have wraparound services in one place and a campus-like feel and a community. People want to belong to a community.
Absolutely do.
And right now the community is walk from Gate City Boulevard to the IRC, walk from the IRC to here, walk from there to there. And it's dysfunctional. We need a better situation. But I'm going to go to where our problem is mostly can be solved is leadership.
Leadership of our community?
Yeah.
They have to take the bull by the horns and do it.
And, it's easier said than done. But I think that we are seeing some real progress. I am encouraged by our new city manager. I'm more than encouraged. I'm excited about his new leadership coming into town. He's already made some tough decisions with some people that are going to be unpopular. And unfortunately, that's what it's going to take.
I agree. These change is hard for people.
Yeah. And
sometimes change takes money out of other people's pocket. That really is hard. But once you get on the other side of it, it's really good. Back to, the homeless thing. Odell, you're on the board at Nussbaum Center. So Star told me to tell you that there's been a homeless guy living in Nussbaum Center for a week, going to office to office to office.
Okay.
And they finally took him out, and the heat's not working.
And
the air conditioning didn't work.
Yes, sir.
So she's got 3 complaints. So you stay away from Star. She's coming for you.
Okay.
Star, just for folks who don't know who Star is, she works at Nussbaum Center. She works for one of our companies, and she actually runs it. And she said, "You going to see Odell soon?" I said, "I'll see him at 2:00 today." She says, "Well, here's my list."
Okay. As a board member, muckety muck, right? So now I have a to-do list. Now, it's interesting that what you talked about, people, Andy and Bill, people knowing about us. Think about this strategy of sending people somewhere else. When it first started happening from Texas and Arizona, those governors was plane, train, sending people to these things called the sanctuary city because it was a definitely different perspective on if you don't allow migrants to come to your city, we have a sanctuary city. So they start pouring them in. They start shipping people to the vice president's home. They start shipping people to Martha's Vineyard. They start shipping people like, whoa, 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 whoa. How sanctuary is my city now? Mayor Adams of New York is like, whoa, 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 whoa. So not in my own backyard, Andy?
Not my own backyard. What?
People laying in the streets
Yep.
or on the sidewalks. Because when I saw you on TV, help me understand what were you in front of the city council and
Yep.
you weren't loud. You were just as nice as you could be.
Yep.
What was you there either supporting or against that night, sir, in front of our city council?
Yep. So I was supporting this new ordinance that, and ordinances are great, but then enforcing an ordinance is another thing. We've already had some ordinances on, in place, but not really being enforced. And it got to such a head with downtown businesses and the population of the homeless, where I hear a lot of people saying downtown's not safe anymore. And I can't go downtown without somebody approaching me and panhandling or being aggressive or dealing with the mental illness, or we let the problem get out of hand. And this ordinance is not to prosecute or remove homeless. It's an ordinance that will help prohibit lawlessness. I mean, it's a law. You can't go to the bathroom in public in front of somebody, in front of a lady, in front of a family, in front of children. And it's been happening a lot. Look, if you have to clean it up, like I have done a lot around my buildings, you'll understand that there's a problem. And where does the problem start? The homeless people don't have a place to go to the bathroom. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? Well, hopefully you're going to go behind a bush and not in front of somebody, but there's a lot. I mean, I witnessed it this week. Somebody dropping their drawers right out there, and look, I got to go to the bathroom.
It's not funny, but the way you said,
I mean,
dropping their drawers and dropping a pile
and
in front of your welcome to.
I mean, so not in our city. Yeah, not going to the bathroom out in the public. Yeah, not approaching women aggressively and
For money?
There's a time and a place and a way.
Mm-hmm.
And, this new ordinance is just going to give the police some additional tools. And with that said, mostly what I've seen, in fact, all of what I've seen, the police and the downtown, not residents association, the ambassador program helps the homeless people with their problems. It's not just get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
It is if you're going to go to the bathroom, if you're going to do something that's against the law. Lawlessness should include homeless people. Lawlessness should include everybody. And this new ordinance is going to help some laws that have been being abused and hopefully not hurt people.
So, Andy, I'm not trying to be crude or rude or vulgar, but you said, Odell, it's different if you walk to your business and you had to clean it up. Is that a weekly thing, a daily thing, or what?
Being on with several of my buildings on the path of the homelessness from one end of town to the other, it was funny. One time I had a porta-john outside one of the buildings that I was renovating, and I knew the homeless people were using it. And I'm like, no problem. You got to go to the bathroom, use it. And then you wouldn't believe what the inside of the porta-john looked like all the time. And, what had to be cleaned up. And the construction workers were like, I'm not going to go to the bathroom there. I can't go to the bathroom there. That place, it's horrible. So I've dealt a lot with it, Odell. And I try to deal with it with compassion and understanding.
Mm.
I get to use a warm bathroom every time I go to the bathroom, no matter where I go. By the way, Bill, I need to use your bathroom.
Yes, you can. Yeah, no problem. It's outside in porta potty.
Yeah, I mean, I have done a lot of engaging with the homeless people. Yesterday I met a guy who's outside one of the buildings that I take care of, and he asked me for money, and he was genuine about it. I normally don't like to do it because I wonder, is it for alcohol? Is it for drug? What is it for? Can I buy you a lunch? A lot of time people say no. I want the money.
Mm.
And so I wonder, well, if you're hungry, don't you want some food? But at any rate, I am always trying to approach it with compassion and understanding. And then, it's a challenge. It's difficult
So do you give money to a homeless person or not?
sometimes, but not much.
I do. We do sometimes. Our family,
Yeah.
we do this thing called blessing money. Every year, my wife, we teaching the grandkids now. Every year, the wife will take X amount of dollars, give it to the boys, give it to my daughter-in-law, and give it
Great
to our
lesson.
grandchildren.
Great
It's like,
lesson.
okay, your responsibility is to give this money away.
Yeah.
But use spirit of discernment when you give it away. But at the same time, though, I've known some people, and people get so upset when I say stuff like this, but I've known some people who said, listen, this is the best time of year. I stand on the corner and ask for money and have a card, work for food, and man, you wouldn't believe Christmas time, I make a killing.
Yeah.
I make a killing. Bill, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't usually give money for the same reasons Andy doesn't. I'll give it to an organization like Urban
There you
Ministry
go.
and stuff
There you go.
because they're
Yeah.
dealing with it right on the front line. And I don't know if I'm giving them money enabling to do something that's not right. So I prefer not to. It's as much as it breaks my heart with these people, but I understand.
I give to United Way. It's my clearinghouse of, donating, and I know that they address the homeless problem. I give to the IRC, which is, a lot of my friends, it's controversial.
Explain what an IRC is.
Interactive Resource Center is a day service center that offers for the homeless a place for them to go and get online on the computer, get mail, because if they're homeless, where do they get mail? And showers. They have had services that have been funded that a lot of people question, do they really provide those services? And I'll go back to leadership. It has some new interim leadership there. I'm very encouraged by the interim leadership, and I hope that they get somebody permanent in the position, whether it be the interim leader now or another person from outside. But I think that place can be an asset for the homeless community, and as opposed to a liability. For a little while, I questioned the fine line between asset and liability, but I give to them. I give to Out of the Garden to help feed the hungry, and I would rather give to organizations than I would to individuals.
Yeah.
And with that said, yesterday I gave to this person who asked me, because I know the person. They're very pleasant. They are really trying to, get work, but they have health issues. So yeah.
Different situation.
Different situation.
Hey, why isn't the IRC over in Urban Ministries? Why isn't it near that?
So the IRC was donated by a family. The building was donated by a family in Greensboro to offer day services. And that was at least 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Things have changed dramatically, and we need a different approach, and we need more different assets, and we need different programs. And so I think the IRC has outgrown their facility, and I think we need to look at these other city models that have been successful.
Well, let me ask you, this is the Jim Melvin approach. Jim recognized that having a baseball stadium downtown was going to make a huge difference, but there was a couple problems. The county and the city had buildings on the property that he wanted. So what he arranged for, which was very brilliant, to swap out buildings.
Yep.
And take the land, but make sure that the services that they had actually had a better facility. So it was a win-win. Can't we do something like that with the RC?
Well, remember what I said a minute ago about leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Jim Melvin is a perfect example of that. And look, we've got we do have great leadership here in Greensboro. We have a problem that's not easily solved. Things have changed dramatically, and we have to look at things differently
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Different set of lenses.
Yeah. And, I think our new city manager is
Doing that. I
He's
have to
doing
meet him. I haven't met him. I didn't know he was at the party. Otherwise, I'd say
Yeah,
hi.
Trey Davis. Trey's a
Yeah.
good guy.
Do you know
He's a
him?
good guy. Yeah,
Could you,
personally.
why don't
Yes.
why don't you arrange a lunch for you and I?
Yeah, no problem.
And have Andy come because Andy knows the best restaurants in town.
Okay, I thought you wanted to come to pick up the tab.
No, I
No.
I have had some great meetings with Trey. And look, Trey's not going to agree on everything that I want to see happen, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Trey comes from a law enforcement background, and he was city manager and head of the police and the fire. And I think
Assistant city manager.
assistant city manager. Thank you. But he's bringing in a new leadership style, and it's refreshing.
Well, it's kind of like Whitney Oakley with the school board.
Yeah.
She came in with a whole nother
Yeah.
viewpoint, and she's bringing in a staff that's coming in with that kind of approach.
And you know what? I think a main ingredient that Trey's bringing to the table, accountability.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a new concept in government.
It's big time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, before we go away, one of the things that as a young pup sitting on these board of directors, that's when I saw the Jim Melvins of the world and others who would say, okay, we need to build a baseball stadium downtown. Where? Well, we're going to build it down. There's people like, well, that's the Department of Social Services building. That's this. He said, okay, let's talk to whoever is in charge of Guilford County. Let's get the players in the room and say, okay, we need back to what he told me 20 some odd years ago. You build up downtown. That's your engine. That's your economic engine. And literally people got together and negotiated and partnered and made deals where you're going to tear down good buildings because I'll build you a better building on the other side of town where you need to go. And that's how all that happened, because you have to have enough leadership, enough kahunas, and enough respect and money to make some things happen.
Yep.
Because sitting there screaming, hollering, and everything else, and that's what Jim and others, not just Jim, brought to Greensboro, but you have to stay focused, and he doesn't give up. So when you think about those type of things, the homeless population, when Michelle was in charge of the RRC, I thought she did a good job. Now she left, and the interim person never knew that person. I don't know that person did a very good job. I don't know the third person now. Do you know who the third person is, Andy?
She's been there at the IRC.
Oh, okay.
And worked under the previous executive director.
I don't know if that's going to work out or not. I'm not going to say it will or won't, but sometime when you're under somebody else, you could do a great job. But when I say I don't know if it'll work out, because the search committee usually looks for somebody else, like you said, Houston. So if they found someone in Houston who was involved in that whole approach, they may look at it that way. You mentioned that your friends get upset because you give money to the RRC because it's like you are enabling the problem, or why do they get upset, and why don't you care if they get upset or not?
Well, it's my business who I give my money to. That's number one. And,
Amen.
you know, look, the leader who stepped down was not successful. And
We can all agree on that.
The city gave a tremendous amount of money, and there were supposed to be services provided that turns out weren't provided.
Close to $500,000, correct?
Yes. And we just weren't holding people accountable for the money that we were giving. We weren't checking back up. Is the money that we gave you doing what it's supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
Again, and I think that's what Trey's going to bring to the table as the city manager. He's going to hold people accountable for what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, the city's a huge employer. And I think that there's a lot of people that work in the city that do a lot of great things. And then there's some people that aren't doing great things or aren't accountable for what their job they're supposed to be doing.
Interesting. Bill, do you think it's difficult from time to time to deal with the city and work with the city?
Nah. Depends on what you're trying to do. We put a room addition on, and we had to get through some inspections. That was, and I don't know if they're just being difficult, or I just don't understand the system. So I have to learn the system and what they can and can't do, what they have flexibility with and what they don't. So I think it's like anything else. But Andy's right. There's some terrific people, and there's some people that aren't carrying their weight. And in any organization, and Jack Welch, the head of GE, wrote a book about this. The top 10% are your A players, maybe 20, and then there's a group of about another 25% that are your real worker bees, and then there's the bottom 10 to 15% that aren't delivering. You got to get rid of those 10 to 15% and start bringing in more of the top guys, top people, because the top ones are the ones that get things done. The ones in the middle just execute. Yeah. And, the problem you get into government is it's hard to let somebody go.
Well,
in business, you give them a couple chances and they're gone.
Well, I think things is changing. Listen, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Trump fan at all. But what I am is this. I am an American. I hope that President Trump is successful on some of the things that he wants to do. I hope that he's unsuccessful on some of the shenanigan things that happens. But Biden's presidency, in my opinion, it wasn't a failure, but it wasn't good. Now, as a Democrat, people are like, Odell, I dare you say that. No, let's be for real. Let's be for real. Now, I'm not even going to get into Hunter Biden or anything, but I'm going to get into infrastructure. And then I'm talking a little bit about Syria. But first, let's talk about it home first. Greensboro, North Carolina, a city that I love and has given us so much. If we don't get the infrastructure right, then it's not going to work. If we don't have the per capita income, because people ask the question, well, the government will pay for it. My tax dollars are paying for it. Half the people who say their tax dollars, they don't even pay enough tax to even be a change in the bucket at doggone Salvation Army ringing the bell. And I'm not trying to be elitist or anything, but folks don't know what it costs. Infrastructure, it would have cost, because we complain about potholes, we complain about this, we complain about that, but do you know what it costs to give you services? And for those who are not paying anything, and listen, I was on that end. I was poor. I was the poor boy from public housing. I understood what I understood. In my mind, is this thing called the government's going to pay for it. The government will pay for it. Well, who the heck is the government? Almost slipped just now, go. I almost said something I shouldn't have said, Andy. It was in my head, and it went from my brain almost to the tip of my tongue, and I caught it.
I heard it.
You heard it?
I heard it.
But who's the government? So when you say the business owners who's paying the taxes, and you have to clean feces from your business, or a homeless individual decided that your front door to your business is his or her new home, and you have to go out there and fight with this individual, and the individual keeps coming back and says, I don't care what you says, I'm a squatter now, I own this property. And you're like, what in the heck is going on?
Yeah. I just want to go back to the city and, your question. The city's a business, and they have a lot of employees. And, the things that every city across America has been going through, if they're growing, is growth problems. And, we've lost a lot of legacy employees that were good employees that took all the information they learned with them, not purposely, but all the experience. And we've lost a lot of experience through retired people. We've lost a lot of good employees to other cities that are, I'll pay you some more, come to our city. And so we're constantly training, we're constantly bringing on new people that don't understand the work. They're not as efficient as somebody who's been there for 20 or 30 years in their job. So look, I understand the issues, and I'm going to go back to the one key thing is leadership. And we need to continue to build the leadership in this community and be willing to make some tough decisions that could be unpopular with some people, but make a difference with a lot of people.
He goes back to Jack Welch 10%. We need the 10% leadership. And if we don't get the 10%, you don't get a good product.
Well, Bill, we have our mayor who told me at the party and told everybody she's not running again. So now we have individuals jockeying for the mayor. We have a brand new city manager who's new to the position but understands the city. We have city council individuals that is a big turnover. You know what's happening now.
Mhm. Yep.
That whole situation. So, Andy, are you comfortable or confident in what you're seeing as a business owner, downtown business owner, or are you optimistic, pessimistic? What's your temperature say?
I'm very optimistic.
Why?
We have first because it's Greensboro's time.
Mm.
You know, we're arriving. Not sure we've arrived yet. I kind of do, though. You know, there's a reason why Toyota built the largest EV battery plant in the country,
Right.
20 minutes south of downtown Greensboro.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Boom Supersonic is here. There's a reason why Marshall Aircraft is here. The list is long, and there's still good things on the horizon that are going to come as ancillary to all these opportunities that are coming to Greensboro. We have a quality of life here. We have a lack of traffic here. We have affordability here. We are an attractive city to a lot of people who are looking for what we're giving them. I think Nancy Vaughn has done a terrific job.
Here.
And I think
agree.
that in a very tough environment through COVID and, you know, through all of the challenges. And I applaud Nancy for the work she's done. And I applaud Nancy for, I guess you could say, stepping aside for, you know, what the next new leader is. Look, I ran my company and founded it and ran it for 13 years. And I realized, you know what? It's gotten to the point where it's exceeded my capabilities. I started with 2 employees and I left it. We had over 300 employees.
Is that good or bad? Is that the Peter principle, or that mean you just did a great job?
Oh, I did a good job building it, but then I think it exceeded my capabilities at, you know, a $35 million company. To report to other people and investors. Look, I did a very good job building it to where I got it, and then I wasn't the person to take it to the
You don't like
That's pretty normal.
Yeah, you don't like nobody to tell you what to do.
That's not true.
Okay,
Jim Melvin can tell me what to do.
got it.
You know, people who I have respect for, who have more experience than I do, more knowledge than I do, absolutely tell me what to do,
listen.
please.
Yeah. Yeah.
But folk who don't know what they're doing can't tell you anything.
Well, they can tell you, you're not going to take the advice.
Let me ask one question, Bill, and I'll come right back to you. Do you think that the people on city council, the gentleman, what's the gentleman's name? African-American gentleman.
Hugh Holston?
No,
Frankie?
No, he's not on the council. He's one of the speakers. I met him when I used to come to your events.
Dreadlocks?
Yes.
Philip Marsh?
Philip Marsh.
Yep.
Philip is a strong brother.
Yep.
Do you think he makes people nervous or he holds people accountable?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd make me nervous if he got in my face. I can tell you this much. He actually got a little bit upset with somebody at the last city council meeting. And I'm like, I don't think you want to mess with this guy, buddy.
Well, usually that's the effect that Bill Goebel have on people at the school board meeting. So,
hey, I got to tell you, you got to have Philip Marsh on your podcast sometime.
Okay.
There is a lot of depth to this guy that people just don't judge a book by its cover.
Okay.
And he is one deep person. But Philip Marsh has property he owns right across the street in East Greensboro from the IRC. And his business has been greatly affected. And Philip came from the hood and has now got some assets, and those assets have been threatened. And so Philip's been threatened. And
what does that mean? The assets been threatened, and Philip's been
he lost
threatened.
his main tenant because of the IRC being across the street.
Yeah.
All the homeless people coming. I mean, another guy, I don't know if, what's his name, who came from prison and now has a workout gym.
Coach Lynch Hunt, my good friend. AWOL Fitness
that
Center.
guy is
He's amazing.
He's amazing.
He sits behind me in church.
I mean,
and knocks me and taps me on my shoulder every time he comes in. And he comes in late. Coach Hunt, you come in late, but you're still my man.
You deserve it. He left that property of Philip's and brought so many people to it.
Oh, yeah.
And in training them and giving them another way of life, a healthy way of life and a good way. And Philip lost him. And,
After about what, 20, 15 years?
He was there a long time.
Yeah.
He was there a long time. And it was a great setting for what he was doing. But you talk to Philip. He's
we have to get him on the show.
Yeah, you do.
Speaking of that, Mr. Goebel, when you get a minute, international things. We have the Trump administration acting like the current administration. We have the Biden administration who's just quieted down. It's like, listen, I got Hunter a pardon. Now I mess with nobody else. I'm just going to drift in the night. What in the world is going on? Is this two ships passing in the night?
Yeah, I think so. But there is something I want to talk to you about, and we haven't talked about it. You texted me and you said, do I have some shovels for a dedication? And I told you I do, but they're not the kind of shovels you want for a dedication. You want fancy shovels. So I said, get a hold of the mayor or Skip Austin, see if they've got some in inventory. But tell us what you're doing with those shovels. What do you got going on over there?
Okay, I can't go into all the details, but we are doing a ceremonial groundbreaking for a $100 million project over at our faith community church institution, where we'll be celebrating partnerships with healthcare institutions, partnerships with senior housing and other housing, partnerships with a performing arts center. So a lot of good things on a part of town that many people said, I don't know, Odell, we like you, but I don't know if you get a return on investment. So Bill, when people tell you, I don't know, you just keep looking, you keep talking, and it takes 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. And then someone says, oh, that sounds good. But let me tell you how things like this happens though. Toyota on that part of town changed everything, because now you have 3,000 to 5,000 people that's 21 miles away. So when I talk to the city now about our 1,000 parking spaces that we only use on Sunday, and we say, hey, let's talk to the city, Greensboro, Toyota, and create a park and ride. It's like, oh, that makes sense now. Or when we say that housing is coming on that part of town, it's easy to go talk to a medical facility and say, hey, can we get a X amount of square foot ambulatory care center or offer this? Oh, that makes sense now. Because back to Andy's point, the city came in about a year ago and built all this infrastructure because the city knew where the loops were going and everything, 421 and the new loops. That's the key. Because what wasn't sexy 20 years ago, now all of a sudden was sexy then.
And you probably eliminate some of your food deserts too.
Definitely. But more than food deserts, the medical deserts, because years ago I did a study for the local healthcare institute and said these two zip codes are costing you 18 million and 17 million a year because the EMS is coming to get people here and going to the emergency as their primary care facility. Yeah. Let's sit down and talk about how we can save you some of the money from here, and maybe on part of the savings, can we work out a deal that we invest 10% of the savings back into an institution that can help do savings? And they looked at me like I was not the good-looking black guy, because people had certain things in their mind, and I'm not mad at them. Let them do what they need to do. But just because, and this is one of the things I learned from Jim Melvin and others, just because one person says no doesn't mean that that's a no. Andy, how many times have you been told no in your business? Bill, how many times have you been told no in your business? Sometimes you get told no enough, you start questioning yourself. Am I just that stubborn and stupid? I don't want to fail. I don't want to be rejected. Rejection is not fun. But it's like, no, I believe in this. And if my belief means that I have to get rejected and ostracized and people like Odell's nobody coming on the black part of town and building a damn thing.
You know what I used to do when I was told no? That meant yes. I need to try that. Why are they telling me?
There's a challenge right there, right?
There's a challenge right there. But, back to your project, you invited me down to take a look at that property.
Yes.
And my initial impression was, oh my gosh, what an opportunity here.
Yes.
If the land is beautiful, the community around it, needs it and deserves it.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for championing that project. And I can't wait to see that first shovel.
When is the shovel?
Well, we're having something, a ceremony of peace in church this Sunday, but it's going to be a major announcement in the next 2 weeks once we get all the.
So you got
MOUs,
time
the
to get your
buttons
shovels.
up. Oh no, I got all the shovels. I sent texts out to all my friends, and let me tell you something.
Did you get fancy shovels too?
I got fancy shovels
Whoa.
and non-fancy shovels.
Wow.
People will help you if you will help them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that what folks don't always understand is that people want to see you do good
Mm-hmm.
if the cause is right.
Yeah.
As long as it's not about Odell trying to enrich himself,
Yeah.
or Bill trying to enrich himself, or Andy trying
Absolutely.
to enrich himself, because what we're doing, and I'll say this, and you gotta touch something here, Andy. I'm sitting here trying to negotiate a deal with a 50, close to 30, 40, 50,000 square foot, 2-story healthcare facility. And people are like, Odell, what's your why? Because when I was a child, my mother got misdiagnosed with health issues when she was having a stroke. And they said because she was poor and Black and all this, she was having paralysis. Now, I can't tell you that the physician who sent her home said that in his mind, but he said, come back on the free clinic day. But she had insurance, Andy. So she went home, and anybody know anything with a stroke, and everybody now heard this story, but you asked me what's my why. And so she went home, and thank God that my grandmother had a white Jewish doctor who did house calls. That's late 60s, early 70s. And he came and saw my mother and took her back and argued with that same physician to make him accept my mother. So that's my why on why don't you just give up on this doggone thing, Odell? I can't. Or you say, well, why are you doing all this housing? Because we used to be homeless as children. So I can't. You have to work out the issues that's inside of you. And I found the best way to work out what's dealing with me is by helping somebody else.
Mm-hmm. That is a great.
So that's why I can't. Now you got me crying. Now the good-looking Black guy crying, but I still got on all the colors though.
That's real success.
Yeah,
though.
and that's what we do. Make you cry. Listen, I want to share something. Last night I was a sponsor for an Eagle, as a female, Royce, Jim's daughter, and she's one of these outstanding young ladies. I mean, she's going to be a superstar wherever she goes. Right now, she's got 52 merit badges.
Wow.
Yeah, you need 21 to become an Eagle. And she says she's got another 8 months in scouting, and she says I'll get another 10. And they asked her what she wanted to do at the Eagle Board of Review that I was at, and she said I want to go be a public speaker. And they said, and she's already taken what's that class that you take with speakers? Toastmasters.
Yes.
Yeah, she's done that and done really good at that. And they said, well, what motivated you to do that? She says, well, I was at this, my dad does these Youth Resilience Summit, and we did one in Greensboro. And this speaker got up and talked about his mom, and he's talking about you. Talked about her mom and the story you just told. And there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. And she says, I want to motivate people that way. And so because of you, she wants a career in public speaking.
Wow. I didn't know that.
You don't know who's listening.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and she was just a high school student. She still is, but even younger back then, because that was 4 years ago, 4 years ago.
I think I remember that. I think I remember we had that.
You were the closing speaker.
Yeah. It's interesting, but if that doctor didn't care enough for my mother, she would be dead now. So, closing words. Andy, thank you for coming. What's your thoughts on all this stuff, other than a good-looking Black guy crying? But you know what? I still look good, even with tears coming out of my eyes.
Yeah, I'm still enamored by a common ground and what you guys do, and just bringing people together and having good conversation about subjects that matter. And so again, just want to thank you for the invite back and the platform that you're providing out there for everybody.
Well, we're glad to have you back. It was too long. We'll make sure you get you back sooner. I think we're going to do our next summit at Wake Forest.
Okay.
I'm hoping to do it at Wake Forest Medical School, but
Wow.
we'll see. And it's going to be in May of 2025. And we've already got, I think Jim's got half the speakers already lined up.
Well,
And so we're pretty excited.
tell Jim, a good-looking, slim and trim black speakers that know how to wet some eyes.
How to close a deal.
How to close the deal.
You know who closed the last one we did?
Who was that?
Josh Stein.
Okay.
But he didn't make anybody cry.
Well, hey, listen, Josh Stein is going to be the next governor.
He was great.
And Nancy Vaughn is going to go work with him.
Yeah, I think so. And that's good. That's good that they're make a good team.
I think so, according to what position she's holding.
Yeah.
So Josh is good people. We've had our run-ins early on when he was a little rookie, rusty, but toward the end, he really got it together.
Yeah.
And the person he was running against, last words, Mr. Goldberg, sir. How does it feel? Speaking of running, how does it feel? How does it feel now that the election is over? You got your win back. You look like you look like Bill again.
Yeah, it took a lot of time. Took a lot of my time, which was good and bad. The bad part was I didn't get to see people like Andy and other people because, I was just so busy. Every night I had to go do something, and so that gives me pause about future political ambitions. I think there's a lot of things I can do, either serving on committees or behind the scenes, and much more effective. So Dorian and I are going to make some decisions in January, and we'll just go ahead and share those on the podcast when we get there.
All right. Well, listen, thank you again for listening to us. You got the good-looking black guy crying with all the colors. You have Bill Goebel over there, the superstar here, and you have Andy coming in saying, listen. We thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye.
you, Andy, for coming in.
Find Bill and Odell online at thecommonground.show. This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. Darren Sutherland, executive producer. Doug Harding, creative director. Jacob Sutherland, director. Producers Jason Gentarola and Matt Golden. And Jinrei Zhang, video producer. All rights reserved.
Whether you're a big, medium, or small business, managing and growing the bottom line is important. Focus CFO brings the experience and financial acumen of a Fortune 100 chief financial officer to your company at a fraction of the cost. P&L help, internal reporting processes, or any business transitions or events. Focus CFO will help you and your team have a CFO in your company's back pocket. Focus CFO. Learn more at focuscfo.com.